Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic show. It's episode 555. We've got a great guest friend, panelist on our roundtable show. We've got Chris Badgett back, one of the joint founders of LifterLMS. Chris has been on the show multiple times, but we've got a great subject for our discussion this week. We're going to be talking about the marketing strategies that have worked for Chris and LifterLMS during this year. It's been a great year for LifterLMS, and Chris is going to be talking about the strategies, the platforms that have got the biggest success in exposure and sales for his company. So, Chris, can you just do a quick 20-second intro for yourself, and then I'll talk about one of our sponsors. Off you go, Chris.
Sure. I help course creators create, launch, and scale high-value online learning platforms. And we help the experts themselves, the teachers, but we also serve the WordPress professionals who deploy these types of sites. We've got a plugin called LifterLMS, and we also have a podcast dedicated to this niche called LMS Cast.
That's great. And I've got my great co-host, Stephen. Stephen, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, Steven Statter from zipfish.io. We make WordPress blazing fast by optimizing both the code and the servers.
That's great. And before we go into the main part of the show and our discussion with Chris, I want to talk about one of our sponsors, and that's Kinsta Hosting. Kinsta is a specialized WordPress hosting provider. They only deal with WordPress websites. If you've got a WooCommerce site, a learning management system like LifterLMS, and you need extra performance, and you will, Kinsta's a great choice. They offer all the bells and whistles, one-click backup, automatic backup, one click to the latest version of PHP. I could go on and on. Also, great support, a great team. I suggest you go over there, look at some of their plans, not only for yourself, but for your clients. If you do purchase one of their plans, and I highly recommend that you do, please don't forget to mention that you heard about them on the WP-Tonic show. It really helps the show, and it really helps Kinsta. So, on to the interview, Chris. It's been an interesting year would be understatement. I think you've been reasonably public about the kind of sales and the kind of growth your own company has experienced. But what I wanted in this particular podcast is to have an emphasis about what have been some of the marketing channels that you have built upon or tried out in 2020 that has given you the most growth, you feel. So is there any particular channel, platform, style that you've tried that has surprised you the most about getting more growth and sales?
Yeah. To frame it all in, let me just back up and say that marketing is one of the things that I could talk about a long time. And really, it just comes down to a very simple strategy I learned a long time ago. So I am not a computer programmer. I do not have a business background. And I did not start this company as a techie. Yet here I am with a company that's doing well. There are things in the environment that we can control, and there are things in the environment that we can't control. But the marketing as a skill set has been one of the fundamental pieces that has allowed me to build a WordPress LMS technology company with no prior technical skills, no funding, nothing, from complete scratch as a bootstrapper. The way I think about marketing, it does not matter if you're a WordPress professional, an agency, a product provider, a retail business. There are some fundamentals that literally do not matter what the business is, that if you follow can help you generate leads and scale out a company. So the most simple framework that I use for marketing falls into three buckets. What's called inbound, outbound, and relationships. Inbound is content marketing. More broadly, it's attraction marketing, where you attract leads through attract inbound leads through lots of different channels and content into your marketing funnel or just into your client acquisition system. Then there is outbound. This is where you go out and you prospect or you pay for reach on platforms like Facebook, Google, YouTube you're going out away from your home base instead of attracting, you're doing outbound sales. And then the third, which is very important in the WordPress community and for all businesses, is relationship marketing, which is not I'm going to do this for you, so then you're going to do this for me. It's more just investing in high quality relationships with your customers, your peers, your industry partners, your other marketers, other stuff like that. So broadly put, if you develop a diversified strategy across inbound, outbound, and relationships, even if one of those stops working or doesn't working, my advice is to be doing something in all three of those buckets all the time. And start small. Start with one thing. So if what's working for us, and what I find is that companies, whether that's an individual or a personal brand or a solopreneur or a very large company, either way, they tend to have one of those tends to be stronger based on the personality of the founder or the marketer and also their skills, but you should still develop a broad strategy. For me and LifterLMS, our strength is in inbound marketing, generating leads from nothing, just doing attraction marketing. Our second strongest is relationships, going to conferences, networking, even doing shows like this. And the WordPress is a lot about community. So there's a lot of relationship stuff. And for me, relationships is just giving as much as you possibly can with no expectation of return, but just investing in people and just the human side of business. And then outbound, we do a little bit of in terms of paid advertising and reach through boosted Facebook or targeted YouTube campaigns and a little bit of Google AdWords. But really, I just use outbound as a way to amplify the inbound that's already working because that's my strength. So if I have a message that I want to get out, I will create the content. I will amplify it through outbound through something like, let's say, a Facebook boosted video, and then also leverage my relationships in a way that, like, how can I make whatever I'm trying to promote also benefit other people? So there's a lot we can dig into. Yeah. If I were to I know you asked for specific strategies, but that is my foundation for.
No, that's fine. To
outline marketing.
Yeah, outline before but like I say, before I pass it over to Stephen, the intelligent one of our partnership. Sorry, Stephen. Is there been one particular, of those three strategies? I would say, I don't know for a fact, but I get the impression that number two, paying to get traffic, you haven't really utilized that. Has that changed in 2020, or is that going to change in 2021? Are you looking at investing more money in paid traffic, or is basically the fundamentals of your marketing strategy going to be the same in 2021 as they were in 2020?
It's a great question. I did have a change in paid advertising strategy in 2020 post-COVID, which is that I noticed that Facebook, as an example, got a lot cheaper as advertisers were, being more conservative or even canceling their paid advertising. I could get more reach for less money. And so there's that. And then I compound it onto the fact that there's a thing, if you look at social media and large companies like Facebook and Google, where they are they will always prioritize themselves. So I learned that with Facebook advertising, as an example, if I put a native video on Facebook, and I put no links around the content at all in the description or in the ad or anything, and then I pay Facebook to optimize it for video views, as an example, I would get 10 to 100 times the reach of what if I was putting a link in there. So an example would be if I was going to do I could reach like 20,000 WordPress professionals for like $40 as an example. But that's with a message with no link to click on. So this gets into the debate between brand marketing and direct response marketing.
Well, yeah, that is the thing. I'm going to throw it over to Stephen now, but I've got some other questions, obviously. Over to you, Stephen.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack. But I guess just to like take it back one step. Let's say I have a course or I have a business that I just created and I don't have any customers. I don't have a lot of followers, but I have a great idea. How did you start like LifterLMS? Did you start it with inbound? Like how does inbound work when your reach isn't that big to begin with? Like, do you have to start with outbound? Is that the only way to get traffic or relationship?
That's a great question. So there's a lot of debate now in the marketing world around like the difference between flywheels and funnels. And I'm a fan of like the flywheel. So in the beginning, a lot of the impact is just small. Everything that we're doing now is what we've always done, but our results were just much smaller in the beginning. And I learned from Jason Cohen at WP Engine. I just heard a talk he gave around how to start, like what to do in the very beginning. You know, as he was starting WP Engine and doing other companies in the Bootstrap model, he talks a lot about toothing and clawing, which is where you throw a lot at the wall to see what sticks. What a lot of people do is they think they have to do paid because they don't know. They don't have anything else in their tool set. They don't have an established YouTube channel. Nobody follows their blog. They don't even know who to reach out to or whatever. But what I recommend doing for people at the beginning is to really do that portfolio, the spray and pray method of, when Lifter first launched, what did we do? We made YouTube videos. We reached out to probably 15 different WordPress publications about the launch of our product. We were posting on our personal social media accounts. We were reaching out to existing course creators that we could find on sites like Udemy and other places. We reached out directly in the WordPress community. We wrote blogs. We created Facebook groups. We started our podcast, which has almost 300 episodes now. But that first episode, you speak into the darkness. We started our Facebook group, which now has around 8,000 people in it. That just used to be me in there talking to myself, reposting content. But you have to get the flywheel spinning. And then certain things take off at different times. Maybe you hit one relationship well. Maybe you, like our Facebook group didn't really take off until there were about 400 people in there. Our YouTube channel, it was all right. It's still not even that great in terms of reach and the views and stuff like that, but it's super niche. So you got to throw a lot at it and see what sticks. And at the end of the day, the biggest lesson the pandemic has taught us, which is sad but true from a marketing perspective, is when we hear the governments and the news media talking about essential businesses that can remain open, this idea of an essential business. I'm not here to debate what's essential, what's not, but what stops a lot of businesses in their tracks is they are what we call in marketing a suggestion and not a solution to a burning problem, with a clear customer looking to get a clear result that you can help them with. So if that stuff in the beginning, like the value proposition of the business itself is off, and then the ability to form a clear pitch of what it is and who it's for and the result they're going to get and how long, and even in challenging circumstances, is off, all the marketing is not going to matter. So there's a little bit of foundational stuff, and then the fundamentals there. And nobody's perfect, you know. Like, I still, as an established business, have customer avatar issues. Like, I mean, we work with experts, we work with big companies, we work with schools. Like, who's Lifter for? I don't know. Who's WordPress for?
That's funny. That was exactly the question I'm going to be asking you after the break. You must have read my mind, Chris, which is very easy. So we're going to go for our break, and we'll be coming back, and I'll be asking Chris a question around what he's just stated. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. We've had a great initial discussion in the first half with a great friend of the show, Chris Badgett, the joint founder of LifterLMS. So, Chris, it was just amazing, your last statement, because that was going to be my question. Because the biggest struggle I've increasingly 2020 has been a great year for WP-Tonic. You know, it's just got stronger and stronger. But like you, the biggest problem is who is my customer? Who am I really serving? And I've struggled with that enormous amount. I'm not satisfied that I've got a real answer. But you've had this, by the sounds of things, had a similar problem of who is really you are serving the best. I think that's the best way to put it. How have you got any insights about how to deal with that and how to clarify, to break through the mist, the fog, as I call it, to find out who you should be appealing to the most?
Yeah, I have two things I've learned. One of them is just a framework around this idea that if you take care of the ends, the middle will take care of itself. And this is what WordPress itself does, is it's designed for like a beginner, first time blogger, or somebody who wants to put a site up on their own, no code, whatever, like the newbie. Yeah, it's this incredible development platform that complex developers and companies like ours can come in and build on top of and build these businesses, or somebody can build a really custom web application for a client with WordPress. So if you take care, when you're building a product or a service business on top of a flexible platform, taking care of the ends, the people in the middle will take care of itself. But if you ignore the newbies, or you ignore the power users, it tends to create a lot of friction. And the way I think about software, and really any business, is that we're in the friction removal business. So the job of a business, if you're having a hard time selling or marketing, you don't have a clear customer, you're not, your business isn't like removing friction that people want removed, and maybe you're not, you can't communicate that. So that's what I would recommend looking at when it comes to your messaging and stuff like that. Like, what is the friction? What are we solving here? When COVID happened, an essential business, the hospitals need to stay open.
Danny, I'm sorry to interrupt there, Chris. I'm going to throw it over to Stephen in a second. But the only problem with that comes to my mind is, like, it would be the same for you as for me. You got the people starting who are looking for, maybe, well, they should be, but it doesn't always work out, does it, Chris? They should be looking at the quickest, easiest platforms, technologies that will enable them to get their first course up and running as quick as possible, right? Yeah. But also consider how easy it is going to be to improve the offering and be able to alter the offering as you learn more about their customers, right? And then you got maybe people on SaaS platforms that have got very similar to e-commerce. They might have started with Shopify, but they have functionality which Shopify can never satisfy in SEO key functionality. So they look at something like WooCommerce. That they're very different type of people. So how do you choose which one you're going to focus the most on? Is it by looking at your analytics? Is it by anecdotal, feel about who's going to buy the most? That fundamentally that's the key question. Who are the people that are going to buy the most from you, isn't it not?
I can answer that in one word: positioning. So this is the book by April Dunford called Obviously Awesome. So if you have a business and you don't know what your position is and you really haven't nailed positioning your business, like why is WordPress or WooCommerce, how is it positioned in contrast to Shopify? How is LifterLMS positioned in contrast to Kajabi? I was just in an email exchange this morning with somebody who was pulling their hair out over Thinkific and cannot wait to get into WordPress. But there's also people that come into WordPress that should be over on Thinkific. So it's not a zero-sum game where somebody has to lose in order for somebody else to win. We call this the infinite game. What's more important is that you as a business owner figure out where your position is in the market and you tell that story. Now, when you have a flexible platform, I learned from one of my business mentors, his name's Dan Martell, that he has a strategy called the bowling pin strategy, where, okay, we're going to focus on one customer for now. It doesn't mean we're not going to sell to the other people. It doesn't mean like next year we're not going to change what the main headline says on our homepage or whatever. So for us, as an example, your question, Jonathan, was like, do you go after who you would make the most money with? Not necessarily, because I've been on the phone with university tech departments. They don't care. They're just like, I want 10 of them. But then I have to get on the phone with their legal department. I need to get on the phone with all these different departments, their lawyers calling. And I love seeing Lifter inside universities. It's actually in lots of universities, but when the IT department or when the legal gets involved, it gets complex. It turns into an enterprise sale. So what I realized with Lifter and just for positioning the first bowling pin, you want to go after the people where you're going to make the most money. That's going to be the easiest to sell to, which is where, that the example I was providing is a high maintenance prospect. And then they're going to naturally get high levels of customer success without taxing the support team. So there's a certain type of WordPress professional that is actually our, main target market, if you will. Does that mean a wannabe first time make money on the internet person is not a good fit? No. Does it mean that somebody who's frustrated and they're already moving on a SaaS is not a good customer? No. Does it mean that like a speaker who's on the speaker circuit and tired of like sleeping on planes and then COVID and everything shouldn't come over to WordPress? No, they already got a WordPress site. They should just plug in Lifter and recreate their business virtually. Yeah. All those people are our customers, but for the past year, we've really been focusing a lot on the WordPress LMS professional. We just did a really great webinar. So that's marketing content and building relationships with GoWP, who leads a group of WordPress professionals and agencies. And I did a presentation about how to build a WordPress LMS agency in 5 hot niches within the online education market. So that is an example of me marketing to a very clear customer in a win-win sort of way. So that's what it's all about.
Right, over to you, Stephen.
Do you think there's a negative side effect to switching up those pins that you're targeting? Like a lot of times, like, okay, I'm going to go after this person. And like, you start trying to create that inbound flywheel sort of thing, but that takes time. So then you're not seeing results from that right away. So then you're like, oh, well, maybe it's a different person. You go after that. Like, how do you weigh that decision on who to go after? How long do you go after it? So you decide if it's working or not working. How do you make sense of all that?
Yeah, that's a great question. One advice I got, again, from my one of my business mentors, Dan Martell, during COVID, especially when it first hit, like I'm talking in like April-ish, like website traffic, sales, everything was just like going way up. And I was like, what do I do? I have this bowling pin I'm focusing on, basically, like this ideal customer profile, this customer avatar, whatever you want to call it. But I'm like, I'm getting all this stuff from all these angles. And he said to Fisher price it, which just means it's okay, change your strategy, generalize it while you've got all this, and then circle back later to go back to your core customer or focus on a new one. So it can kind of ebb and flow. It's not like it's a all or nothing decision. So in that case, when I got tons of interest from no clear customer, I just, generalized the marketing and what I was doing. But then later, as things are more stable and things are calming down and people are figuring out, I've been focusing more and more on the WordPress LMS Professional. But because WordPress is flexible, we're always going to have, like, it's a powerful tool. You can make a lot of things with it. There's always going to be a little bit of like a collection of customer profiles. So there's a difference between a customer profile and what in marketing, ideal customer profile, and what we call segments. So it's okay to do segmentation and have, like, so for us, we have experts, we have people who build sites for clients, and we have businesses and institutions that are using LMS. Those are our segments. And we have tons of marketing across that broad basket. It's just that the 80-20 of it is focused on the ideal customer profile. So it's not like a hard science. It's more of an art. It just helps you focus when you're like, man, there's just so much, there's an infinite amount of marketing you could do and videos you could create and blogs you could write. So 80% of the time, make it for that current customer profile. And the other thing too is you have to instrument your business or your product or your service so that you know what's working and who's coming. Like, I'm constantly looking at, like, when people buy Lifter, what's their email address? Oh, what kind of business is this? Oh, okay, we're getting more and more test prep companies. Maybe we should create some test prep marketing. And maybe we should help WordPress professionals build sites for test prep companies. I mean, that's a niche. So yeah, it is.
I don't even know what is test prep. That is quite the niche.
Test prep is just where people, like, prepare for the MCATs or the SAT, or to get their pilot's license, or to become a nurse or whatever. Like, there's all kinds of test prep niches. And those companies, like, when they launch on WordPress and Lifter, they do very well. And this is a good marketing thing. If you have test prep, or you have continuing education to keep a job, like you're a surgeon or a pharmacist, or you need to have ongoing continuing education, these companies do very well because their customer literally has to take this in order to keep their job, so that there's friction there that's real and there's a deadline. And as long as they do the fundamentals right, those businesses are easy to market and scale. And because they have a clear customer, like pharmacists in Ohio, talk about targeting like a Facebook ad with that kind of specificity. It's just very easy. The problem is, we call it the expert's curse, where people just, in courses and online education, you get so passionate about something, it's really hard to focus. It's a big problem in our industry. So.
Yeah. We're going to wrap up the podcast part of the show. The 30 minutes goes quick. Hopefully Chris can stay on for another 10, 15 minutes. You'll be able to watch that bonus content on the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. You'll be able to see the whole interview plus the upcoming bonus content. I'm going to be asking Chris more specific questions about paid advertising and what is the bigger picture, what is the purpose of LifterLMS. So Chris, what's the best way for people to learn more about you and what you're up to?
You can just go to LifterLMS.com and check us out there, or listen to our podcast, LMS Cast.
That's great. And Stephen, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
Head over to zipfish.io, run a speed test, see how fast we can make your site run.
And I've got to say, Stephen and his team have been really helping us with some client work, plus they're helping us with the WP-Tonic website. Go over to their website and try out their speed optimization services. We've been delighted with the help Stephen and his team have provided us. I can't highly praise Stephen much more, really. We'll be back next week with another great guest, another great conversation. We'll see you soon, folks. So I was thinking, what is the bigger purpose of WP-Tonic than just making a reasonable living for Jonathan Denwood? And I think it's because that's a great purpose. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think there's also got to be a bit more as well. And the purpose of WP-Tonic is to take away some of the friction of using WordPress as a learning management platform and make it more attractive to those that are looking at SaaS, and to reconsider WordPress as their platform. That's the objective of WP-Tonic. What's the bigger objective for LifterLMS, Chris?
So our mission and vision is really twofold. Our main thing, just broadly, is to lift up others through education, and I'll get into some specifics on that. And the second part of that, our more internal mission, and as a technology company, is to be a model for how to do freemium in WordPress, because we believe to lift up the most people possible through education in our world, as much as we can possibly give away as a technology platform to empower other education entrepreneurs for free, the more the world improves. And this has been going on long before COVID. We just published a new episode today on our podcast with a WordPress community member, Malcolm Peralty, who from WordPress Titan, who deployed a LifterLMS site with a partner in Africa that's empowering 1 million teachers in Africa to be able to deliver more online training at scale. It's amazing what's happening there. But that type of story is part of our mission. And so we're trying to build a viable business, and we're trying to grow, and we're trying to scale. But at the end of the day, there's learning is what makes us human, and there's such a big opportunity for innovation and how learning works, not just for K through 12 or whatever, or college, but even adult learning. If you're listening to this podcast, you're likely somebody who wants to continually learn, and maybe you've just discovered WordPress, or you're trying to learn. And people now with the internet are getting all these niche domain area levels of expertise. Like, I want to learn from Stephen about how to speed up a WordPress website. I know nothing about that, but I know I need that. I actually have some friction on that with my site. But everybody, when I look around and I look at people, they have this value trapped inside of them that they could share. Everybody has a course inside of them based on their experience, their skills, their expertise. I'm not saying that everybody in the world needs to have a course, but there's just so much opportunity to improve the lives of others through learning. That's really our big picture mission vision stuff.
Yeah. Over to you, Stephen.
That's awesome, because I feel like that perspective that you have really reflects what you were saying earlier on about the inbound marketing idea, that just create things, be there, and the relationship idea, like, and being helpful and helping other people, that like both of those things, right, is kind of what you're talking about. Just like giving things to people as much as you can possibly give without that expectation of return, which you mentioned before. And how that like not only just makes the world a better place. So if that's the only thing you've ever done, like what more do you want than that? But also helps build the business or what you're passionate about, because people start recognizing you, I'm sure, like as the expert in the industry and the person with the answers or solutions when people have more complex issues or problems. Do you ever feel like you can give too much? Does that boundary ever get like too, like where you're giving out too much for free? We have to be like, all right, no, like here's the paywalls. Like, and how do you determine that?
Yeah, I mean, we've done it before, like in the early days of Lifter, where we had something in the free core plugin that we had to pull out to keep our business alive and put it in a paid product. But I don't really see that as a mistake. It was just more part of our own learning journey. And we did, I mean, we're bootstrappers of the truest sense. So we built a WordPress agency that we operated in for a long time, and we used the profits from our WordPress agency to fund the development of the product. And even when we first launched the product, Lifter, which was at first was only a paid solution for $149, we only got 42 customers. That was the initial launch. So in entrepreneurship, there's something I call the valley of despair that bootstrappers have to go through. If you're venture backed, you don't necessarily have to, but that's part of the problem and how they get bloated and stuff like that. So we went through that valley, not making much money, figuring out who our customer is, building our marketing engine slowly, throwing a lot at the wall to see what sticks, while also building client sites to help keep the lights on. It was a very painful couple of years before we reach what's known in entrepreneurship as escape velocity or profitability or whatever. You can finally chill out a little bit. But yeah, it can be pretty painful, but there's no way. Most people have the problem of hoarding all the value and keeping it inside. And I don't want to tell somebody my idea. I don't want to give away anything for free. I'm not going to get on a 15-minute call and see if I can add some value to somebody so maybe they'll buy my service. Like, most people are too stingy, not too giving. So I'm a big fan of like high contact entrepreneurship. So very beginning, like phone number on the website, Calendly link, let's get on a call. Let's see what this market, I want to hear the market talking in my ear. And I still do that. It's called there's an acronym for it called a CAB. We call that a customer advisory board. Like, there's people in that first group of 42 Lifter customers that I have talked to at least once a month for the past 6 years. So my finger is on the pulse, and I have this Facebook group and whatnot. And yeah, like people, I need to, like, sometimes I'm like, I got to build systems and routines as an entrepreneur so it doesn't turn into this massive give fest. Because a lot of creative people have a tendency to do that. They give away their art. But it's
finding a balance, isn't it?
It is. And partnerships and teams. So like, I could never do what I've done alone. You know, I have a technical co-founder who has never listened to a single podcast episode that I've created or been on, but he's busy writing code. But we make a great team, and there's more people at Lifter than just the two of us. But I can get away with giving a lot, but I also have a team that's making sure that we're profitable and like getting the job done and making our customers successful and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I call it educational marketing. I think, you know, obviously with all products and services, there's a pricing element. There's what I call the value metrics. How people see you, how they see you in the value metrics, and then the price metrics, and then the risk metrics. And depending, you know, when you're dealing with larger companies, the risk metrics becomes more important than the price metrics. So that's, but then I see, I'm sure other people have spoken about this, but I haven't heard too much, what I call the education metrics, where, you know, being good value, I think is important, having a good value metrics, but being too cheap can actually also damage you. But I think offering value through education, through what you offer, the courses you offer around the subject, being seen as an educator and a I lost the word, individual that is seen as an expert in that area, that's another area where you can encourage, as I would say, encourage sales. Would you agree with that, or am I starting to waffle now, Chris?
You're not waffling. There's a framework I use to describe what you're talking about there. So if you're a operator, consultant, service professional, one of the things that you learn in sales and marketing
Influencer.
stuff,
I was looking for the word influencer, but in some ways I hate that word. In some ways,
yeah, I actually dislike it too, because my job in marketing, I'm not trying to influence you. It probably will happen, but it will only be because I've added value through something that I've delivered. I'm not trying to. There's this mistaken perception of marketing and sales. It's all about manipulation, and there are people that do that. Not in an ethical way, but I see a lot of good people not study the craft, or whose businesses close up because they think marketing is evil or whatever. But to your question, having education in the value matrix of the opportunity in business and marketing and sales, we learn to qualify. So, you know, if I'm a service professional, like as a website designer, I'm like on my, before you can submit my contact form, maybe there's like a check box, like I have at least $2,000 minimum budget for my site or whatever. And I understand why people do that and why they qualify. In my opinion, that's a huge mistake. So the framework I like to give experts and service professionals and consultants is the do it yourself, the done with you, and the done for you business models. And if you do all three, if you have an opportunity in all three, you never have to say no to anybody. So the do it yourself model, and I'm just going to use Steve because you're here and I'm thinking about it, is I would have a course about how to speed up your website that has like some kind of price tag on it that's affordable. I would have like a little free piece of that on YouTube to naturally generate leads into my funnel. Then I would have like, okay, you still don't have the budget you need, but you need a little bit of done with you. Like I'll do a little bit of stuff. We call this productized service. Maybe it's done in a group format, so it's infinitely scalable. It can be time boxed. The features of the service are very limited, but may include very small amounts of customization. That's the done with you productized service. And then the done for you is the white glove. Just, you got friction, you got cash, I got a bank account, let's do some magic together. Now, if you do those three buckets, you never have to say no to anybody.
Yeah, I think
Smart.
that's wise.
That's a great 3 buckets. I've never heard it distilled down like so succinctly. I like it.
No, but I think we're going to call it a day. Thanks. You have to come back in the new year. I think it's been a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much, Chris. We'll see you next week, folks, where we're, like I say, hopefully we have a similar quality guest to Chris Badgett. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.